The truck was backing toward Bellwether's loading dock when Grant put my work on the conference room screen with his name across the bottom. He clicked through 6 months of my photographs, measurements, and glaze maps, then folded his hands. "Effective today, Mara's compensation will be adjusted by 40%, he said. "The Calder project needs one clear leader, 40% less. The work stays mine." Through the glass wall, 11 blue tarped crates rolled past in the rain. A courier stepped into the room holding an orange receiving ticket. "I need Mara Ellison's required authorization." Grant waved toward the dock. "She works for me. Take it through." I swallowed, looked at the new title printed beside my reduced salary, Project Coordinator, and set the courier's pen down. "I can't sign that." Grant smiled as if I'd made a nervous joke. The strange thing was, beneath the nausea, I felt something loosen. I just didn't know yet whether it was fear or loyalty. "What do you mean you can't?" Grant asked. The courier shifted his weight, bringing in the smell of wet asphalt. His jacket had Hollis specialized freight stitched over one pocket. Water dripped from the bill of his cap onto Claire Bell's polished concrete floor. I turned the receiving ticket so Grant could see the authorization box. It says Approved Conservation Receiver. Yes, that's you. I placed the single-page job description from my new compensation packet beside it. This says I coordinate schedules, enter purchase orders, and maintain project files. It specifically removes quality acceptance and field authority. Around the table, 6 people became fascinated by 6 different objects. Luis Ortega, our warehouse manager, studied the seam in his coffee cup. Dana from sales reread a slide she had already seen. Claire, Bellwether's finance director and Grant's older sister, kept one finger on the corner of my salary letter as though the paper might curl up. Grant gave a quiet laugh. He used that laugh with clients when somebody asked a question he had already decided was unimportant. "Mara, we're changing reporting lines. We're not changing reality. That ticket changes reality. My signature starts the inspection clock and transfers custody. The material is sitting outside. I can see it. It's the Calder shipment. I know what it is. I knew each crate number, each piece inside, and which 3 crates had been loaded against my written recommendation. Crate C-17 held the west parapet caps, fired 2 days too quickly because the kiln in Ohio had lost a heating element. C-22 held 4 cream-glazed rosettes whose sample photographs had been taken under fluorescent lights instead of daylight. C-24 had a dark streak down one corner of its wrapping that could have been road water or something worse. Grant slid the ticket toward me. "Sign it." Claire finally spoke. "Maybe we should take 5 minutes." "We don't need 5 minutes." The courier glanced toward the dock. "For what it's worth, I get 45 minutes before detention starts." Grant pointed at Luis. "Luis can receive it." Luis looked up. "I can count crates." "Then count them." "I can't accept conservation material." "You accept material every day. Pavers, mortar, anchors." Luis nodded toward the ticket. "That orange box isn't on those deliveries." Grant's face barely changed. That was one of his gifts. He could receive bad news without giving it the satisfaction of landing. He turned to the courier. "Take it to the dock. We'll handle the paperwork while you unload." The courier rubbed his thumb along the metal clip of his board. "I can't break the seal until the named receiver signs. Calder Protocol. I'm the vice president of Bellwether." "Yes, sir." "I signed the purchase order." "Yes, sir." Grant waited. The courier waited better. Outside, the truck's reverse alarm kept beeping into the rain. 3 years earlier, a different truck had delivered 62 pieces of custom terracotta for a courthouse in western Pennsylvania. Under warehouse lights, the glaze had looked warm white. Against the courthouse limestone, it turned the color of uncooked salmon. Bellwether paid for the replacement, the freight, and a month of scaffolding. Grant had called it a lesson purchased at retail. After that, I built our receiving procedure: daylight checks, moisture readings, photographs beside crate labels. an orange masonry crayon mark next to any visible defect so nobody could later claim the damage happened after unpacking. For Calder, Priya Shah, the preservation architect, had written my procedure into the contract and named me as an approved receiver. Bellwether had featured that fact in its proposal. Our conservation LED chain of custody. Those were my words, too. Grant stood. Everybody except Mara, Claire, and Luis back to work. Chairs rolled, laptops snapped shut. Dana passed behind me and touched 2 fingers to my shoulder, quick enough to deny if anyone mentioned it. The courier remained by the door. Grant waited until the room had cleared. "Are you trying to embarrass me?" "No." "Then help me understand the performance." I looked at the slide still frozen behind him. A close-up of the Calder Hotel's cornice filled the screen, every crack numbered in my handwriting. His name sat beneath it in blue, Grant Bell, Project Executive. "I'm reading the documents you gave me." "Don't do that thing where you hide inside a sentence." "What thing?" "That." Claire exhaled through her nose. "Grant." He picked up my compensation letter. "Bellwether's margin on Calder has been cut in half since we bid it. Fuel is up. Firing is up. The bank wants labor costs under control before the equipment note renews." I took a reduction, too. "How much?" His eyebrows lifted. "You announced mine to the room," I said. "It seemed like we were sharing." Luis coughed into his fist. Grant looked at him. "Is something funny?" "Bad coffee." "You brought it from home." "Yeah, my wife's mad at me." Even Claire's mouth moved a little. Grant's did not. He lowered his voice. "I landed Calder. I spent 2 years getting Priya to trust this company. There is no project for you to map if I don't put it in the building." That was true, and he knew I knew it. Grant could walk into a stalled negotiation and find the one practical fear nobody had said aloud. He remembered birthdays, stone quarries, preferred bourbons, and the names of project accountants who controlled payment. He had sold a skeptical developer on custom American terracotta, when cheaper cast stone would have passed from the sidewalk. He was good at what he did. He had also used my photographs to make it look as if he did what I did. "I'm not disputing your sale," I said. "You're refusing the biggest delivery in company history. I'm refusing liability that my new position doesn't authorize. You signed the last shipment. I had a different job this morning." His gaze sharpened. There it was, the exact moment he realized I wasn't asking him to reconsider. I had already accepted the new terms, every one of them. Claire turned my job description around and read the paragraph again. "Who drafted this?" "Employment Council," Grant said. "Did they know about the Calder authorization? They didn't need a list of every routine task Mara performs." "It isn't routine," Luis said. "We hold everybody until she gets there." Grant looked from Luis to Claire, measuring the room he thought he had already arranged. Then he picked up the courier's pen. "Fine, I'll sign." The courier pulled the board back before the tip touched paper. "I need an approved name." "You have an officer of the receiving company." "I have a protocol attached to the bill." He flipped up the orange sheet. Beneath it was a white page with 2 names printed in a box. Mine and a conservator from Boston whom Priya had approved as an alternate for emergencies. Grant stared at the second name. "Call him." "Her," I said. "I don't care if it's the Queen of Denmark. Dr. Helen Voss. She charges $400 an hour plus travel." "Call her." Claire checked the time. "Boston to Pittsburgh?" Grant was already reaching for his phone. The courier said, "I can move the truck to our secured yard. Detention becomes storage at 2. "How much?" $280 per hour after the first 4 hours. Weather protection surcharge if the tarp seal stays under active rain. Grant laughed once. This laugh had teeth. "Of course there's a weather protection surcharge." "Sir, I just drive it." Apparently nobody just does anything anymore. The courier looked at me, and for half a second I thought he might smile. Instead, he slid the pen into its clip. "I'll wait at the dock." When he left, Grant closed the conference room door. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "You're going downstairs. You're signing the delivery. Then you're coming back up and we're going to discuss how badly you misread this situation. I gathered my compensation packet. I'm happy to coordinate a qualified receiver. You are the qualified receiver. At 40% less, the qualified receiver stays mine. Luis lowered his head, but not before I saw his eyes close. Grant's face flushed from the collar upward. Claire said, "Mara, give us the room." I left before Grant could overrule her. At my desk, someone had already replaced the brushed metal Senior Restoration Manager nameplate with a printed paper strip tucked into the holder, Project Coordinator. The paper had been cut crooked, leaving a white triangle at one end. My inbox contained a new organization chart, a calendar cancellation for Wednesday's Calder design call, and a message from IT telling me my access permissions had been updated successfully. Priya's project folder still opened, but the approval subfolder was gray. Dana hovered beside my cubicle with 2 mugs. "I brought coffee," she whispered. "I have coffee. That's tea." I looked at the cup near my keyboard. So it is. She handed me a mug anyway. I didn't know he was going to do it in the review. "You made the slides." He gave me the deck Friday at 5:20. "My photographs didn't bother you." "They did, but not until Monday." Her shoulders pulled inward. Dana could sell reclaimed brick to a person standing in front of a new brick wall. Yet conflict inside the office turned her voice into tissue paper. "He said you'd been moved to technical support and that he was presenting for the team. He put his name on my condition survey." "I know." "Did you change the footer?" She looked toward Grant's closed office. He was standing behind me. There were a dozen things I could have said. Most of them would have felt good for 11 seconds. I took the coffee. "Thanks." She blinked, almost disappointed. On the dock below, Luis guided the truck into a temporary bay, but kept the seal intact. Rain hammered the steel canopy. The driver climbed into his cab and began eating almonds from a plastic bag, one at a time. I opened a blank email. "Grant," I wrote. "As of 9:14 this morning, my position has been reclassified as Project Coordinator, with quality control authority and field acceptance removed from the attached job description. Because receipt of Calder conservation material initiates contractual inspection obligations and potential damage liability, I cannot sign as approved conservation receiver under a position that lacks that authority." I read it twice and added Claire. Then I attached the new job description, the Calder receiving protocol, and the orange ticket instructions Grant had approved 8 months earlier. My hand shook when I clicked send. I tucked it under the desk until it stopped. At 11, Claire appeared beside me. "He's reached Dr. Voss," she said. "That's good. She can be here tomorrow afternoon, if she takes the morning flight." Claire rested one hand against the divider. Up close, she looked more tired than she had in the conference room. Grant wore pressure like a tailored suit. Claire wore it in the skin beneath her eyes. "The storage charge through tomorrow will be about $11,000, plus her fee. I can multiply. I've always admired that about you." She almost smiled. "Are you enjoying this?" "No. Grant thinks you are. Grant thinks any feeling he didn't authorize is insubordination." Claire looked toward the window. "He's trying to keep the company inside the bank covenant. By cutting the person who prevents rejected shipments? By cutting costs he believes he can absorb." There was something in her phrasing that made me look at her. "You approved this." "I approved a restructuring. I didn't approve a public execution. The number feels the same in my checking account." Her jaw tightened. "What do you want, Mara?" That question was more dangerous than Grant's anger. I had spent years being useful before asking what useful was buying me. After my divorce, I worked late because the office was lit and my townhouse was quiet. I told myself expertise was a kind of shelter. Grant had just shown me the lease was month to month. "I want the authority matched to the liability," I said, "and I want my name on my work. If he fixes the title and the pay, all of it, all of the work is staying." Claire studied me long enough to make the fluorescent lights hum. I'll take that to him. At 1:40, the rain stopped. Sunlight broke through the loading bay windows and struck the wet tarp. A dark trail had formed down the wrapping of crate C-24, exactly where I had seen it in the manufacturer's photograph. I took the orange crayon from my jacket pocket and rolled it between my fingers. For 7 years, that little piece of wax had meant I was responsible for what crossed Bellwether's dock. At 2:03, the truck pulled away with every seal intact. Grant stood behind the second-floor glass watching it go. Then my computer chimed, "Calder Project Access, revoked." I was still looking at the message when Grant's office door opened. "Mara." He didn't raise his voice. That made Dana stand up anyway. I carried my tea into his office. He pointed to the chair across from him, then returned to typing. Claire was gone. On his monitor, I could see the subject line of my email and the first sentence of a reply, long enough to cover a windshield. "Project access is limited to project leadership," he said. "Then you won't need me in here long." His fingers stopped. "I want the delivery schedule updated by close of business. Add Dr. Voss to tomorrow's receiving window. Coordinate a forklift crew for 3. Send me the revised installation sequence and confirm the scaffold extension with Priya's office. I can do the schedule crew and document routing. I can't confirm an installation sequence without access to the accepted material list. You know what's in those crates. I know what the manufacturer says is in them. We didn't receive them." He leaned back. "Are you planning to insert that sentence into every conversation we have? Only the ones about receiving?" For a moment, something almost companionable crossed his face. Grant had once liked that answer from me. He had hired me after I corrected him during a presentation to a hospital board, then bought me a sandwich and spent lunch arguing that masonry wasn't a personality. Back then, he called my precision useful. Now it was a weapon only because I had stopped pointing it where he wanted. "You've made your point," he said. "Don't confuse that with winning. I'm trying to do the job you assigned me. You're trying to force a reversal. If you reverse it, I won't complain." His phone lit up. He turned it face down. "Close of business, Mara." I stood. "And leave the Calder ledger with me." My hand tightened around the T. The field ledger was a black, hardbound book with a cracked elastic strap, stored in the locked drawer beneath my drafting table. It held delivery dates, moisture readings, crate numbers, and folded yellow copies from 18 months of samples and mock-ups. Bellwether had purchased the book. My handwriting filled it. "I'll bring it." "I'll have Dana pick it up." "I know where it is." "I'm sure you do." Back at my desk, I unlocked the drawer and lifted out the ledger. The orange crayon had rubbed a faint stripe across its cover. I wiped it with my thumb, making the mark wider. Dana appeared with an empty file box. He said there were binders. "There are 7. Her eyes moved to the ledger in my hand. "Do you want me to tell him I couldn't find that?" "No." "I could be bad at looking. You made an entire career out of finding people who need expensive bricks. Those people have budgets. This is different." I placed the ledger in the box, then added the binders in order. Surveys, samples, approved submittals, manufacturer correspondence, freight protocols, installation sequencing, and claims. The box sagged at the bottom. "Use both hands." Dana hugged it against her chest. "He's being an ass. He's also your boss. Those facts have met." When she carried the files away, I updated the schedule from source documents still available in the general drive. I booked Luis's crew, flagged the weather forecast, and sent Priya's office a coordination request that carefully avoided promising anything Grant had removed my authority to promise. At 4:52, Grant replied to the email I had sent that morning. "Your characterization of the restructuring is inaccurate. Quality remains a company-wide priority. Employees are expected to perform reasonable duties associated with ongoing operations." I printed it. Then I printed my original email with its attachments and put both in the thin red folder I kept for payroll documents. The folder had begun life-holding my divorce settlement. Apparently it specialized in expensive reductions. Dr. Helen Voss arrived the next afternoon in a navy raincoat and white sneakers with shower caps tied over them. Louise stared at her feet. "Airline lost my boots," she said. "If either of you has a camera, I'll deny this." "I have steel toes in a men's 8, he offered. "I have feet in a women's 11. Louise nodded. "Shower caps it is." Grant came down wearing a hard hat so clean it still had the manufacturer's sticker underneath the brim. He introduced Helen as Bellwether's independent conservation consultant and himself as project executive. He did not introduce me. Helen looked directly at my badge. "Mara Ellison?" "Yes." "I've been reading your receiving protocol since 6 this morning. You are deeply suspicious of water. Water is patient. So are lawsuits." Grant clapped his hands once. "The truck is 30 minutes out. Mara has the background files if you need them." "The background files are in your office," I said. His eyes met mine. Helen removed a pair of glasses from her case. "I need the approved color range, the transit photographs, the packing diagrams, and the previous mock-up readings, preferably before the object arrives." "I'll get them," Grant said. I went upstairs with him because the ledger was still on his credenza, buried under 2 lunch menus and a sample of red brick. He watched while I found the correct pages. "You could choose to make this easy," he said. "Doctor, Voss just billed you for the time it took us to ride the elevator." "You're proving my point. I genuinely don't know which one." He moved closer, lowering his voice. "You think Priya made you untouchable because your name is in a protocol. I think my name is in a protocol because I did the work. You work for Bellwether. Bellwether owns the work. Then Bellwether can sign for it." The muscle in his cheek jumped. I took the ledger downstairs. Hollis returned at 3:17. The same driver climbed out, saw me, and lifted his orange clipboard in greeting. "Round 2. Helen is your receiver today." He looked at her shower-cap sneakers. "I've seen worse." "You have not," Helen said. Before she signed, she walked the full trailer with Louise. She checked the seal number, photographed the tarp, and stopped at the dark trail on C-24. "What was the weather at loading?" "Clear," I said. Grant answered at the same time. "I'd have to check." Helen crouched beside the wrapping. "The outer barrier is wet beneath the tarp edge." "Road spray," Grant said. "The road is under the truck." Luis turned away and busied himself with a strap. Helen sliced a careful flap in the protective wrap. The moisture indicator beneath it had bloomed from blue to pink. "Quarantine C-24, she said. Grant stared at the tiny square as though it had betrayed a confidence. "The pieces are glazed ceramic. The attachment pockets aren't. If water got into the packing foam, we need to inspect for freeze exposure and staining. We paid $11,000 to store this overnight, and now you're paying me to tell you what arrived." She marked the wrapping with my orange crayon before I could offer it. A broad circle, then her initials. The sight landed strangely. That crayon had always moved with my hand. Watching someone else use it should have felt like replacement. Instead, it felt like confirmation. By 6, Helen had accepted 8 crates, quarantined 2, and rejected 1 rosette whose cream glaze went pink when Luis rolled it into the lowering sun. Grant stood with the rejected piece between us. It looked fine in the plant photographs. "The plant photographs were taken under cool fluorescent light," I said. "I wasn't asking you." Helen held the rosette beside the approved sample. "She's right. I know she's right." That was the first honest sentence he had spoken to me all day. He approved Helen's invoice without arguing. Then he asked her to remain in Pittsburgh through Friday for the next shipment. "I'm committed in Baltimore Thursday," she said. "We'll move delivery to Friday." "Baltimore may still exist Friday." "I'll double your rate." Helen considered him. "You don't need a traveling conservator. You need to resolve your internal authority." "My internal authority is resolved. Then you need someone to explain it to your freight company." She handed him the orange ticket and left in Luis's borrowed rubber overshoes, which were 3 sizes too small and made her walk like an angry penguin. Grant watched the elevator close behind her. Friday, he told me. Coordinate the next shipment for Friday. The manufacturer hasn't released the West Cornice units. They will tomorrow. The firing report isn't approved. I approved it. I looked at him. Priya requires conservation approval. Priya requires conforming material. I spoke to the plant manager. The firing curve was within tolerance. Which tolerance? The useful one, Mara. Luis set down his pry bar louder than necessary. Grant walked away. The next morning, Dana slipped 3 color printouts beneath my keyboard. They showed the West Cornice pieces on pallets outside the Ohio plant. Thin gray lines ran through the anchoring pockets. What are these? Attachments from Grant's email. You shouldn't be giving me his email. He forwarded it to me and told me to make a client update. I'm asking technical support what I'm looking at. She said technical support with enough sweetness to frost a cake. I angled the photographs toward the window. Some lines were harmless quarry pencil marks made before firing. Others looked like hairline fractures where the clay had shrunk around the stainless anchoring pockets. The pictures lacked scale, and one had been compressed until the edges blurred. Ask for the originals, I said. I did. The plant says Grant told them to load. When? 6 this morning. I checked the schedule. Helen won't be here until Friday afternoon. Grant moved delivery to Thursday. I looked up. Dana's expression had lost its humor. He says Luis can take custody and Helen can inspect when she arrives. Custody starts the 48-hour window. I know, I read your protocol. I took a yellow sticky note and wrote, photographs insufficient. Possible shrinkage fractures at anchor pockets. Or not. Obtain full resolution images and conservation review before loading. Put that in your update. Can I say you said it? Yes. She blinked. Really? I'm allowed to provide technical support. At 10, Grant called me into a video meeting with Priya. He had already begun when I entered. Priya's face filled the wall monitor, framed by shelves of stone fragments and a dying fern. We're streamlining internal roles, Grant was saying. I'll be added as an approved receiver, with Luis as backup. Priya removed her glasses. What happened to Mara? She remains on the team in a coordination capacity. Priya looked past him and found me. Did you request the change? No. Grant's chair creaked. The restructuring was an operational decision. And the 40% compensation reduction? Priya asked. The room went silent. I hadn't told her. Dana stared at the table. Luis wasn't present. Claire's office door across the hall was closed. Grant's expression stayed smooth, but his hand flattened against his notebook. That is confidential employment information. You announced it during a project review attended by my specifications coordinator. Grant glanced at Dana. She shook her head quickly. Priya continued. Your presentation also identified you as author of the Calder Condition Survey. The file history identifies Mara. I presented Bellwether's work, then label it Bellwether's work. Grant's voice cooled. Are we discussing labels or moving $900,000 in material? We're discussing whether the person requesting acceptance authority understands why the authority exists. I understand chain of custody. Then answer Mara's note about the anchor pocket lines. He turned to me. I hadn't sent Priya the note. Dana's client update had done exactly what client updates do. It had reached the client. Grant said, Mara, explain. The images are too compressed to distinguish quarry marks from firing fractures. Full resolution photographs should be reviewed before loading. The truck left Ohio 2 hours ago. Priya held still. You released unapproved pieces? The firing report was within manufacturer tolerance. Those are not the project tolerances. We can inspect at delivery. Who is signing? Nobody answered. Priya put her glasses back on. Hold the truck off-site. I'll send a local consultant. Grant ended the meeting before the sound had fully left her mouth. He waited until the screen went black. You went around me. No. You fed Dana a technical objection knowing it would reach Priya. I answered a question within my assigned role. You embarrassed Bellwether in front of its largest client. You loaded material before approval. I am trying to keep a schedule alive while you stand in the doorway and admire your principles. Claire appeared at the open door. She had been close enough to hear. Grant, she said. He ignored her. Effective immediately. You are suspended without pay pending review of your conduct. Give Claire your badge. The orange crayon pressed against my palm inside my jacket pocket. I unclipped the badge, placed it on the table, and stood. Grant looked almost disappointed that my hand was steady. At the elevator, Claire caught up to me. This is temporary. So was 40%. The doors opened. Mara, wait. I stepped inside. He still has the truck coming. I know. He has 22 hours left on the inspection window when it arrives. I know. And the yellow delivery copies are in the ledger on his credenza. Claire's eyes flicked toward Grant's office. For the first time since Monday, I saw fear reach someone before the cost did. The doors closed between us. My badge had left a clean rectangle on my jacket where the fabric hadn't faded. I noticed it in the elevator mirror, then kept noticing it in every reflective surface on the way out. The lobby doors, the rain-black windows, the side of a delivery van. By the time I reached my car, it looked less like a missing badge than a label someone had peeled off a jar. I sat behind the wheel without starting the engine. At 2:18, my phone chimed with the suspension letter. At 2:21, my Bellwether email stopped refreshing. At 2:23, the shared calendar vanished. They were efficient when they wanted to be. The orange crayon was still in my pocket. I set it in the cup holder where it rolled back and forth while I drove home. My townhouse smelled like the coffee I had forgotten to empty that morning. I poured it out, opened my banking app, and did arithmetic at the kitchen counter. Mortgage, health insurance if the suspension became permanent, car payment, groceries. The attorney balance from my divorce, which I had finally reduced to 3 digits and resented for its endurance. At full salary, I had 5 months of expenses saved. At no salary, the number changed shape. The drafting table stood under the front window, maple top tilted slightly upward, green cast iron legs planted wide. I had bought it after moving out of the house I shared with my former husband. It was too large for the room and too beautiful for the work I actually did on it, which was mostly stacking unopened mail. I took 6 photographs and listed it online. The first reply arrived before dinner. Beautiful piece. Would you take $700? I had paid $1,800. Yes, I wrote. Then I opened my red folder. The suspension letter said I had circumvented project leadership and created material risk through refusal to perform customary duties. I placed it behind Grant's response, my original email, the new job description, and the salary letter. The order mattered. Grant liked to tell stories from the middle. Claire emailed from her personal address at 7:14. Please don't contact Priya or anyone at Calder while the review is active. I'm trying to create room. I read the message twice. Then I replied, understood. She hadn't asked me to stay silent about Bellwether. She had asked me not to make her job harder. 6 months earlier, I would have heard that as the same request. The man who bought the drafting table arrived in a dented station wagon with a roof rack and an apology. It's for my wife, he said. She restores old maps. He ran his hand across the edge, found a dark crescent where I had spilled tea, and smiled. She'll like that it's been used. Between us, we wrestled it through the doorway. The front legs caught on the threshold, and for 5 absurd minutes we stood on opposite sides of the frame, holding $700 worth of my emergency plan. Turn your end left, I said. My left or your left? The table's left. The table has opinions? It has survived 2 apartments and 1 marriage. It has earned opinions. When the station wagon disappeared, the empty space beneath the window made the room look larger and cheaper. I put the orange crayon on the sill. Luis knocked the next evening carrying a paper bag that smelled like garlic and a 6-pack of ginger ale. I brought dinner, he said. You know you can text before appearing at a suspended woman's house. Claire told everybody not to contact you, so you chose trespassing. I'm not good with policies. He took 2 containers of baked ziti from the bag and looked around. Where's the giant table? Sold it. His face changed. Don't, I said. I didn't say anything. You were about to say something with your eyebrows. My eyebrows aren't company property. We ate at the kitchen counter. Luis told me the West Cornice truck had spent the night at a secured lot outside Monroeville. Priya's local consultant, Martin Kessler, inspected it Friday morning and signed for it with a one-time written approval. Is he good? I asked. He knew which end of the moisture meter went against the wood. Glowing review. He found 2 chipped edges and 1 cracked packing brace. Grant said the gray lines were quarry pencil. Did Kessler inspect the anchor pockets? He looked at the photographs. The compressed ones? Luis took a long drink of ginger ale. Those are the ones Grant gave him. I stared at the sauce congealing along the edge of my plate. He needs the originals. I said that. Kessler had a train to catch. Grant can request them from the plant. He can. Did he? Luis folded his napkin into smaller and smaller squares. I pushed my plate away. Why are you here? Because the dock camera system overwrites after 30 days. That didn't answer me. I tagged Monday and Friday as incident footage. Company records retention. Anybody deletes it now, the system logs the user. Luis, I'm doing my job. Freight dispute, possible damage claim. I preserve footage. Don't risk your position for me. His folded napkin had become a white block beneath his thumb. I'm not doing it for you. That's worse. I'm doing it because Grant had C-17 moved into installation staging before Kessler finished his report. Then he told Claire Kessler fully cleared it. You saw the report? I saw the email subject. Conditional acceptance. He looked toward the bare patch under my window. My dad worked for a steel fabricator for 34 years. Last 5, they made him train 3 different guys to replace him. He kept saying if he was helpful enough, they'd remember what he'd done. I waited. They remembered where he kept the drill bits. Luis stood and carried our plates to the sink. Don't ask me for footage, he said. I can't give it to you. I wasn't going to. If there's a claim, your attorney can request it. I don't have an attorney. Yeah. He glanced at the empty room. I figured. Claire scheduled my employment review for Monday at 8. Grant sat beside her at the conference table with my black Calder ledger in front of him. The cracked elastic strap had been pulled so tight it bent the cover. My badge lay near Claire's hand. Grant wore the blue tie he used for lender meetings. Claire had a legal pad divided into 2 columns. She had written employment on the left and project on the right, as if the line down the middle could keep either subject contained. We'd like to resolve this, she said. Good. Grant opened the ledger. There are inconsistencies in your receiving documentation. Which ones? Some photographs referenced here aren't in the project folder. Manufacturer photographs are stored with manufacturer correspondence. Field photographs are stored by delivery date. They should all be in one location. The indexing sheet is inside the front cover. He turned to it. The sheet was exactly where I said it was. Claire pressed her lips together. Grant flipped another page. You made personal annotations in company records, moisture readings and glaze observations. Grant pushing release despite incomplete documentation. What date? January 14th. That was the courthouse finial shipment. You pushed release despite incomplete documentation. That is commentary, not data. It tells me why the inspection window was shortened. It tells me your opinion. Claire held out her hand. Grant passed her the book. She read the entry, then the one above it. There's an email reference. Bottom right, I said. GB-114. Grant leaned back. Claire turned to the employment column. We're prepared to restore half the salary reduction, effective immediately. The number appeared on a printed sheet, $89,600. And the title? Senior Project Coordinator, Grant said. Quality authority? You would resume customary receiving duties. Under whose authority? Bellwethers. Who holds professional responsibility for my acceptance decisions? Grant's patience thinned visibly. The company always stands behind its employees. Put that in the offer. Claire wrote something on her pad. Grant said, "We also need you to confirm the West Cornish shipment was received in accordance with your protocol." I wasn't there. The shipment was inspected by an approved conservator. Then his signature confirms it. Your protocol requires a review of manufacturing records and transit photographs. We need a statement that the documentation available at delivery was sufficient. It wasn't. You haven't seen what Kessler reviewed. I saw the photographs before I was suspended. They were compressed. I requested originals. You saw representations of the same condition. I saw pixels. Claire looked at Grant. Why does it need her statement? It doesn't. It would simplify the file. For who? For everybody. I slid the offer back across the table. My old salary, my old title. Written authority matching the liability. My name restored to the Condition Survey and Conservation Plan. Grant's face went blank in the particular way it did when he had moved beyond anger into calculation. You're in no position to demand all of that. Then you're in no position to demand my signature. Claire kept her eyes on her legal pad. Could you return on an interim basis while we negotiate? Doing what? Coordination. At the new salary? At the offered salary. Will I be asked to sign? Grant said, when operationally necessary. No. He closed the ledger. I have spoken with 3 firms that regularly hire conservation managers, he said. It's a small field, Mara. People ask what happened when a senior employee is suspended during a major project. Claire looked up sharply. Grant, what did you tell them? I asked. The truth. You refused a critical delivery and caused an avoidable delay. My job description removed acceptance authority. You are welcome to explain that distinction in every interview. The room seemed to contract around the black ledger. Grant had never needed to shout. He knew exactly which part of another person's life lacked scaffolding. Claire's voice was low. We're done for today. I stood, but she pushed my badge toward me. Take it. Grant turned. She isn't reinstated. She needs building access to collect her personal property. I picked up the badge. In the elevator, my phone showed 2 emails from restoration firms where I knew the principals. One said the position had been placed on hold. The other thanked me for my interest 14 minutes after I submitted it. The orange crayon was on my desk where I had left it Monday morning. I slipped it into my jacket and packed my reference books, spare shoes, tea bags, and the framed photograph of the Calder mock-up under afternoon sun. Dana came around the divider carrying a stack of paper. I printed the original presentation file history, she said. The one before Grant changed the footer. I can't take company records. It's the authorship log for material you created. It still belongs to Bellwether. Her hands lowered. He told people you had a breakdown. What kind? The calm kind, apparently. That sounds restful. Her mouth wobbled. I took the framed photograph from my box and handed it to her. Keep this away from direct light. The color shifts. I know. You do now. A sharp crack came from below us. Then another. People moved toward the glass wall. On the loading apron, a crane held one of the West Cornice pieces 6 feet above its transport frame. A gray line opened through the anchoring pocket, traveled across the cream-glazed face, and split the piece in 2. The lower half struck the padded frame. The upper half swung from the lifting clamp. Louise shouted for everyone to clear the bay. A third crack sounded inside C-17. Grant ran from his office toward the stairs. Claire stayed behind the glass, one hand pressed flat against it. Dana whispered, "Were those the lines?" I looked at the broken face, pale and raw beneath the glaze. Yes. The orange crayon felt warm in my closed hand. Grant stopped at the stairwell door and turned back toward me. For 1 second, neither of us moved. Then he said, "Get your hard hat." I'm suspended. Grant held the stairwell door open. "I need your eyes." You told 3 firms my eyes were unreliable. I told them you refused a delivery, and now you want me on the dock after a failure involving material I refuse to approve. Another crack sounded below us, softer this time, like ice settling on a pond. Claire stepped between us. What would it take for you to inspect? Written authorization, paid at my previous salary rate, my role limited to documenting the failure and protecting the remaining material. I don't accept custody, and I don't sign anything retroactively. Grant started to speak. Claire raised one finger. You asked what it would take. She pulled out her phone and typed with both thumbs. He stared at me. There are people standing under a loaded crane. Then clear the dock. I know how to run a warehouse. Luis already cleared it. That's why you came upstairs instead of calling an ambulance. His face changed. Only slightly, but enough. Grant liked being the person who understood the fear beneath the conversation. He disliked discovering someone else had found his. My phone chimed. Claire had written exactly what I requested and copied Grant, Luis, and Bellwether's outside employment counsel. I set my box on the conference table. Now I'll get my hard hat. Luis had lowered the broken piece onto padded blocks by the time I reached the loading apron. The crane hook hung empty above it, swaying in the draft. Cream glaze flashed along the jagged edge, while the exposed clay underneath looked rough and red. Grant pointed toward the fracture. The carrier hit something. The Hollis driver stood beside the sealed trailer with his orange clipboard tucked beneath one arm. He was the same man from Monday. No impact event, he said. There are 3 broken pieces. Yes, sir. They didn't break themselves. No, sir. Grant looked at Luis. Was the lifting clamp centered? On the marked lift points? Were the pads clean? I put them on myself. Then somebody mishandled it before it got here. The driver's jaw tightened. I crouched near the broken anchor pocket without touching it. A gray line ran beside the fracture for 6 inches, then vanished beneath the glaze. Luis, get me the inspection light. Grant said, we have daylight. I want to see the pocket. Luis brought the narrow LED wand from the receiving cabinet. I held it at an angle. The gray line sat inside the glazed surface. At the edge of the break, a thin skin of glaze had bridged the crack before splitting. This opened during firing, I said. Grant crouched across from me. His trousers touched the wet concrete. It lifted intact. The glaze held it together until the clamp loaded the anchor. You can't know that from looking at it. That's why I asked for the original photographs. He stood. We need to file a freight claim today. File a notice. Don't assign cause yet. Every day we wait puts the schedule further behind, and every wrong claim makes the next one harder. Claire came down carrying my black field ledger. Grant had left the elastic strap hanging loose. I found the manufacturing index, she said. C-17 should be under west elevation, fabrication. She opened to the tab. Behind her, Dana emerged from the elevator with a company laptop and a roll of paper towels. She handed the towels to Grant, then set the laptop on a packing table. The plant sent the original image files, she said. Grant turned toward her. Who requested them? Claire. I had already spoken to the plant manager. You requested a written release statement, Claire said. I requested records. Dana enlarged the first photograph. It showed C-17 outside the Ohio plant before wrapping. The image was sharp enough to see dust on the pallet and a worker's glove at the edge of the frame. The gray line was there. Dana clicked to the next photograph. The same line crossed the anchoring pocket on another piece. In the third image, an orange quarry mark sat 2 inches to the left of it. Grant pointed. There, the orange line. That's what we're seeing. No, I said. That's quarry crayon. It stays on the surface. I pulled my orange crayon from my pocket and drew a short line on the padded block. Then I rubbed it with my thumb. Wax smeared across the fabric. The gray line is under the glaze. Grant looked back at the photographs. The plant classified them as tooling marks. Who approved that classification? Nobody answered. Claire turned a page in the ledger. GB-217. Grant's head came up. "What is that?" she asked. I read the date beside the reference. The revised firing report. Dana searched Bellwether's manufacturer archive. My access was gone, but the index in the ledger told her where to look. The report appeared with a yellow banner across the first page. Deviation. Temperature recovery cycle shortened. 1.8 hours following element failure. Below it sat a chain of emails. The plant's quality manager recommended extending cooling and conducting dye-penetrant testing around the embedded anchors. The extension would have moved shipment by 4 days. Grant's reply was one line. Proceed within manufacturer tolerance. Schedule is controlling. Claire read it twice. Grant removed his hard hat. Damp hair lay flat across his forehead. That report went to the project team. No, Dana said quietly. It went to Grant Bell, project executive. He looked at her. She swallowed, then continued. Mara's access had already been changed. The dock doors rattled as wind pushed rain against them. Luis lowered the remaining crates from their staging supports, so nothing else carried a lifting load. Grant walked to the edge of the bay. For several seconds, he watched the rain. Then he turned to me. Can the pieces be repaired? Not for structural use at the anchor pockets. Can we drill new anchors? Not without engineering review, and the cracks may continue beneath the glaze. What about the pieces still in the crates? They need full inspection before they move. How long? If the plant sends complete records, a day. If they don't, longer. We don't have longer. Priya arrived before 5 wearing a yellow rain shell over office clothes. Martin Kessler followed her down the dock steps, holding a clear plastic folder over his head. Grant walked toward them. Priya, we've identified a manufacturing deviation. We're containing it. She looked past him at the broken cornice section. Kessler signed conditional acceptance, she said. Inspection of embedded anchoring areas was specifically excluded pending full-resolution photographs. Kessler held up the folder. Page 3. Grant took the report and turned directly to page 3. A red box surrounded the exclusion. I was told this was fully cleared, Claire said. Grant kept reading. I said the shipment was accepted. You said fully cleared. Because the visible condition was acceptable at delivery, except for the condition you knew we hadn't seen clearly, Priya said. He closed the report. We're all looking at the same problem now. Assigning language to conversations won't replace the material. No, Claire said. It tells us who had enough information to stop it. The rain intensified, drumming on the canopy. Water blew across the edge of the apron and gathered around the broken piece. I asked Luis for plastic in blocks. He and the Hollis driver covered the exposed clay while I moved to the remaining crates. C-17's second piece showed a pale gray line near the lifting insert. C-19 had one beneath a patch of packing dust. On C-21, the line disappeared under the cream glaze and returned at the edge. I marked each one with the orange crayon, a circle, the crate number, and my initials. Priya held an umbrella over the ledger, while Dana photographed every mark. Kessler compared the physical pieces with the plant images. Luis read numbers aloud. The Hollis driver recorded seal conditions and delivery times. Grant stood just outside our circle, answering questions when someone asked him and making himself useful when they did not. He found extension cords. He moved lights. He called the installer and stopped the next morning's crane crew before they mobilized. That was the hardest part of being angry with Grant. When reality finally cornered him, he could work. By 7:30, we had isolated 7 suspect pieces across 3 crates. 2 more required lab testing. The dark trail on C-24 had caused surface staining in the packing material, but had not reached the terracotta. Helen's quarantine had saved the moisture claim from being confused with the fractures. Priya closed her notebook. Installation stops on the west elevation. The manufacturer replaces every affected piece. Bellwether submits a revised inspection plan by Friday. We can do that, Grant said. The inspection plan comes from Mara. Grant's eyes moved to me. She's suspended. Then resolve that. I can provide the plan. You released pieces against an incomplete review. I made a scheduled decision based on the plant's tolerance and put your name on the conservation survey while removing its author from the project. Priya zipped her rain shell. I'm not approving you as a receiver, Grant. He took that without blinking. What about Luis? Luis shook his head. I don't want it. Priya looked at me. Are you willing to continue? Not under the arrangement I had Monday. Then tell Bellwether what arrangement you require. Grant let out a breath. We are standing in a loading dock with a 6-figure replacement problem. Is this really where we negotiate compensation? Claire closed the field ledger. This is exactly where you negotiated hers. The plant accepted responsibility for refabricating the 7 pieces after lab testing confirmed firing fractures around the anchor pockets. Bellwether absorbed crane cancellation, scaffold extension, storage, and inspection costs. The replacement itself was covered. The delay was ours. Ours, Claire said in the financial meeting. Grant kept saying manageable. Both words meant expensive. I attended under the written inspection authorization, seated across from Grant and beside Bellwether's employment counsel, a quiet woman named Janet Rowe, who took notes by hand and never pretended silence was sympathy. Claire had prepared 3 columns this time: direct cost, schedule exposure, and covenant impact. The original labor reduction saved $44,800 annually, she said. The current documented cost of implementation and project disruption is $186,000, excluding replacement delay. Grant rubbed the bridge of his nose. You're charging the entire freight hold to the restructuring. The freight hold resulted from removing authorized receiving responsibility before securing a replacement. I secured a replacement after the hold. You're presenting causation like a straight line because it helps her. Claire capped her pen. It is a straight line. Grant turned to me. What do you want? There was exhaustion in the question now, not surrender. Grant rarely surrendered anything. He priced it. My salary restored to $112,000 through my separation date. Suspension paid in full. My correct authorship added to the Calder Condition Survey, glaze map, and conservation plan. A written correction to the project team. Bellwether confirms to any employer who asks that my refusal to sign was consistent with the authority in the job description you issued. You're resigning? I'm separating after the replacement shipments are received. You expect us to restore your pay so you can leave? I expect you to pay for the work you need. He gave a tired laugh. There she is. I've been here all week. Claire looked down, hiding a smile. I continued. For the transition period, receiving authority and professional liability coverage are written into my role. After separation, I'm free to consult for owners and architects, including Calder, as long as I don't solicit Bellwether employees or use confidential pricing. Grant's gaze sharpened at Priya's name. She offered you work? She asked if I was willing to continue. I'm creating a way to answer. That sounds like solicitation. Janet Rowe spoke for the first time. It sounds like settlement language we can draft. Grant turned toward her. Whose counsel are you? Bellwether's. At the moment, Bellwether needs a clean chain of authority more than it needs another argument. Claire slid a 4th page across the table. Effective immediately, Grant remains commercial lead on Calder. Operational control, quality acceptance, and manufacturer release move to the project control group. I chair it. Mara holds conservation authority through transition. He read the page. Did our aunt approve this? She approved it at 6 this morning. He looked toward the windows where the blue tarp of the quarantine shipment was visible below. You went to her before coming to me. I came to you Monday. The room went quiet. Grant signed last. He used his own pen. The correction went to the full Calder distribution list that afternoon. The condition survey, glaze maps, and conservation plan were prepared by Mara Ellison, Senior Restoration Manager, whose authorship was omitted from an earlier presentation. Bellwether regrets the error. Grant's name remained on the project as executive sponsor. Mine returned to the work I had done. The 3 firms he had contacted received a separate letter stating that my refusal to sign followed Bellwether's written removal of my acceptance authority and that my suspension had been rescinded. One principal called to apologize. Another did not. The third offered an interview for a position that paid less than my restored salary and required moving to Cleveland. I declined politely. Grant and I worked together for 9 more weeks. He sold the client on a phased installation that recovered 12 days. I rewrote the receiving plan so an approved outside conservator could serve as backup without flying in from another state. Luis trained 2 warehouse employees on documentation, though he refused every suggestion that he become a conservation receiver. "I've seen what happens to the pay," he said. Dana restored my name to the presentation template and added a locked authorship field. Grant stopped speaking to me unless work required it. When it did, he was precise, prepared, and almost painfully courteous. On my final day, he found me beside C-17, checking the replacement parapet caps in afternoon light. "You were right about the authority," he said. I looked up from the glaze sample. He put his hands in his coat pockets. "I should have separated the cost reduction from project control." It was the closest he came to an apology. "You should have asked what the control was for." I knew what it was for. "That's worse." He nodded once. "Probably." The replacement piece matched within half a shade. I drew a small orange circle around a harmless scuff that needed cleaning before installation. Grant watched my hand. "You always did like that crayon." "It tells people where to look." He glanced toward the repaired hotel facade across the street. "You could have just signed Monday." "Yes." "We might have resolved the rest afterward." "No." His mouth tightened, then relaxed. He understood sales. He knew when an objection was final. My consulting agreement with the Calder ownership group began the following Monday. Priya gave me a desk in an unused plan room, then complained that my company name sounded like a dental office. "Ellison Conservation Quality," she said. "It needs help." It had 9 minutes of development. "Keep Ellison, lose 2 nouns." I registered Ellison Field Consulting before lunch. The first check paid back the money I lost selling the drafting table. I never tried to buy it back. The map restorer sent me a photograph of it beneath a 19th century railroad survey, tea stain and all. It looked useful again. Months later, the final Calder shipment arrived under a clear November sky. Luis had already inspected the seal when I walked onto the dock. Dana stood nearby with the updated ledger. Claire watched from the canopy, talking to the installer. Grant was across the street with the owner's representative, explaining the recovered schedule with both hands. The Hollis driver climbed down carrying an orange receiving ticket. He looked at my new badge, then at me. "Still you, still me." We opened the crates in order. The glaze held its warm cream color in daylight. The anchor pockets were clean. Moisture indicators stayed blue. I found one shallow rub beneath a packing brace and circled it with the worn orange crayon. Then I checked the authorization box. Ellison Field Consulting. For the first time, the work, the responsibility, and the name beneath them all belonged in the same place. I signed.